Okay, welcome everybody, and thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to have a short introduction here. My name is Mathias Albrecht, as said, Operations Director for Peak Wind. As a brief history, what did I do before? I spent most of my time in wind of my professional career, so I was a military fighter pilot for 20 years. And then I chose to do a real job and to do something good. So now we're in offshore wind. I was heading two of the Ørsted wind farms in Germany, built them up from scratch, and then expatriated in 2018 to Taiwan, and heading operations preparation and ops management in Taiwan. So where are we? Just a short introduction, and I try to keep it short. So this is Peak Wind's local presence or global presence all over the world. This is our clients. We got around 1 gigawatt operated in pipeline. We have around 20 gigawatts employee experience in projects all around the world. 34 client projects served currently, and around 60 employees around the globe, whereas 12 are currently based in Taiwan. So that's all us, and you see the flags on the map. And as promised, I keep it short. So before we dive into challenges in O&M in Taiwan, which is a little bit deriving from what you see on the slide here, what are actually the global challenges that our industry is currently facing? So we have quite some increased competition. As you saw also in Taiwan, there was a few suppliers or developers coming in the beginning, and it's getting more and more and more, and it's getting more and more competitive. Everybody is striving for low cost and high performance of the wind farm with the associated problems that we're facing there. We have quite a global expansion. Also Taiwan is one part of that global expansion. Before it was mainly based in Europe. And as Kevin also said, with an immature supply chain which needs to be developed, and I think that is also the key message that Kevin just brought. Then we have quite a big market extension together with that, with a significant market growth and all the related challenges. And I think all people involved in construction of wind farms in Taiwan we'll see that we have the delays mentioned based on vessel availability, especially for construction. Construction vessels are just not there. They're all utilized, and if there's one delay, there's a chain reaction to all other projects. So we're fighting also that. Then we have new technology, and everybody's happy about new technology, bigger turbines, more production, fantastic news if they run. But what happens if one of the turbines fail? And about 2 years ago, it was 4 megawatt missing out on a turbine. In 2 years, it's probably 15 to 20 megawatts of a turbine that fails. So downtime is an important factor there. We have new foundation concepts, floating foundations, which is a very, very interesting topic, but it is immature. And for O&M, I think there is no complete maintenance and system and concept around that built yet. And then it's layout and location. The wind farms are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and further offshore, which leads to quite some issues with how do I get my technicians out there? How do I account for the time when the vessel is traveling back into the harbor? And how do we manage all that? So this is the global part. And then what is Peak Wind doing here and trying to do? So we are deeply rooted in Europe and obviously with Europe suppliers and European developers with a strong history obviously there. But we also need to explore the new countries, and our vision here is actually, and our vision in general is that we help to prepare our clients for the future based on those challenges that we see. We have a huge expertise in-house for O&M and asset management, and this is also where we want to support our customers and actually provide further services, and that's what we're currently. That's why we're here in Taiwan and all over Asia. And that is no more pointing in the direction of the local challenges. Is it's all Europeans that have the knowledge, but that is not sustainable for the growth that I just talked about. You need local resources, you need local suppliers, and that actually needs to be developed. And that only works with knowledge sharing and sharing of expertise. And I think that's the way we want to go. We want to develop young talents and actually localize our organizations to the maximum extent possible. So what are a couple of factors in Taiwan that we actually experienced during our limited time here and that we still experience? I think one of the most crucial ones, and I know a lot of Taiwanese colleagues and sub-suppliers and contacts that we met, the first thing they tell us is like, they're shaking their head and they're telling us, you guys are crazy. With all your HSE, with all your safety, with all the restrictions, everything you have, you make it so complicated. So it is really the local standards versus the global wind standards. They are not aligned. They are just not aligned. And there is obviously a reason that we have all those standards in wind, because we want to have our employees come home safely, and we don't want anything to happen. And I'm sure that's the same within Taiwanese companies, but then the global wind industry went a little bit further, and they said, okay, it's not only that I care about my own employees, but I don't want any accidents with my supplier. And then they went one step further and they said, and I don't want that their sub-suppliers have any accidents. So that obviously built up a huge system, and the standards are quite different. And it takes a lot of convincing and elaboration to explain everybody why we do it. And the essence is everywhere the same. We don't want incidents. And especially in our environment where we're out on a turbine, with nobody there to help, it's even more crucial that the people are safe. Then the safety culture ties pretty much into it. There is a safety culture here, and people care about their colleague. But who would stand up and say no as a technician and say, we stop operations now? It has a huge commercial impact, and everybody has it in his mind that it's like, oh, should I really do that? And in wind, we actually say, yes, we want that. If I pass by on a construction site for an onshore construction for our project and I see something unsafe, I will stop the construction. And I expect that from every single worker on site. And that is something that is in a more hierarchy-driven system, really difficult to establish, but we need to establish it. The offshore rescue chain, I would say, is immature in Taiwan, to take it the most positive way I can take it. So how do we recover an injured technician from the wind farm? In Europe, our marine coordination presses a button, calls the helicopter, and the helicopter comes out, hoists the people up, and brings them in the next hospital. I think there's a fair chance that this is not working here currently, because also the Coast Guard actually currently refuses to fly between turbines and into turbines, which I understand because they're not trained to do so. But it is a huge challenge to actually transport our personnel home, and this is something that we need to ensure before we really start to send people out on a regular basis. Then for the logistics, I just said helicopter operations not available. That is a little bit of a difficulty for us because we use helicopters quite often in Europe, although it's an expensive means, but it just works very nice. I think vessels and vessels availability, Kevin already said something about it, and I think there we have a local provider. But other than that, if you look for specialized vessels, they are just not available, and then it takes quite a long time to get them in. But this market will hopefully mature quite fast. And then O&M harbor and harbor costs in general for the O&M phase, where every penny counts. I think the pricing is currently still relatively high, and O&M harbors catering the need for flexible O&M operations where it's not planned, it's not every second week there's a vessel coming in, but there's daily in and out, there's daily people transferring back and forth. It is a concept which is not well known yet here. And also here, I think we had very, very nice discussions with engineering companies, also how to set up pontoons, what do we want. We don't want plastic floating pontoons in the water. We want a big concrete pontoon that is not moving. I think it's quite a bit of education. If we go to the right side of the slide, on the regulatory side, I think it is the way it is if you come into a new country. There's new regulations, there's new rules. And I think we did the first step forward with the amendment of the local labor law to actually fit our operational concepts. I think once we started here in 2018, or I started here, it was not possible to get a shift pattern for a technician who can work 7 days or 14 days. People were shaking their heads when we talked about that. And then they said, no, this is never going to work. I mean, the law is amended, so at least we can go up to a certain amount, but to keep continuity with our technicians and enable us to work 12 hours, because we need to travel out quite far, we need to come back. We need a work law that fits actually our needs. Because other than that, if you consider 1.5 to 2 hours travel time into a wind farm and 12 days of a technician, he's effectively working 6 hours. That's not a lot of time he can actually spend to do his duties, and he's spending most of his time actually traveling. Then O&M requirements are also a little bit undefined still. Not that I would not mind that. I think it's nice for us in O&M to be flexible, but at least a framework is somehow nice to get. So I think our task is actually to work actively to find O&M requirements that are reasonable, that we don't have to do every inspection for every part once a year, but that there is a good way of ensuring the asset integrity and having it. But we need a little bit of a framework around it, because right now we're presenting our maintenance framework to the authorities, and then we hope that it gets approved. And it could be pretty much different between all the developers and operators at the end, to say, okay, this is what we do. So there's no common framework around that. And then especially important, I think, for O&M and all the wind farms that will be operated via CTVs is customs and immigrations. We are relatively flexible. We don't know when a turbine is going to fail, so we can't tell you a couple of days in advance which part we're going to bring out into the wind farm. If we have to do a customs declaration on that, this is going to be really, really difficult. I experienced that already in Germany when we established a new wind farm. That's how it started up. So they wanted a 1 week ahead declaration, and I think at the end we managed to end up in a very comfortable position where we were complying with the law, but just declaring everything after a month. So we declared a re-award. I suppose that would be a little bit difficult with the current regulation in Taiwan. And then immigration is the same. I know it's an integral factor to get it done, but we need to be flexible, and somebody can get sick, and then I need to have the opportunity to put somebody in a vessel and say, hey, this guy is going out now, and this is the way it works. We try to plan to a maximum, but we can't plan everything. On-site management, and there we're going to expansion again, and you will see a lot of Europeans up here giving presentations and at the booth, and yes, we need experienced personnel to start up, but we also need local involvement, and we need to build up our local employees and all the personnel working on it. We need to be keen on actually getting them curious and willing to work for us. And we also need to be honest if we do that, because if you promise the technician it's going to be fantastic, you see the sunrise and the sunset on a turbine, it's beautiful. Yes, it is beautiful, but the way out there in 2-meter waves is not beautiful, and you're going to get seasick, and it's going to be cold, it's going to be hot. It's not a very pleasant job, but it's worth it. And I think that is what we need to explain everybody, and we need to get a pool established here that actually in a few years' time, all the experienced personnel who started up here will leave again, and then everything is local. That basically also covers the organization. And then local sub-supplier experience. In a lot of talks with suppliers here, the standard question is, how do we get into the industry? How can we do maintenance here? How can we do it? And our standard answer is be patient. I think patience is one of the main factors here, also due to the fact that a lot of projects are actually financed. What does that mean for a supplier? Well, first of all, it means something for the developer, because every contract we are closing with a supplier needs to be approved by a bank, and the bank is looking at experience, and there we have the first problem. So if somebody asks me, we would have the technology, we have the employees, we can do service on foundations, I would probably have to tell them, but where's your track record? And there we always say, start up slow. Start up really, really slow with small scopes, and try to develop over time. So what do we see as factors, and how could we develop that local, to bring up the local industry to a position where we really have the right side? We have completely local O&M, because everybody agrees that that is the way to go. And I think Kevin said the same. You need to be local, and we all agree on that. The whole industry agrees on that, but we need to do something for it. So I think for HSE, it is education. So just as a background, I mean, I said I'm coming from aviation, so I'm used to safety, and even I was shocked, honestly, when I went into wind power about all the restriction and all the regulations there were. It was incredible. It starts with reverse parking and holding the handrail into a building, and it continues all over. But it is communication. It is all communication. It is try to convince people that everything they do is important for safety. It's a little bit difficult to do that in an office, but even there's a lot of stuff that can happen. And even here on the fair, I think walking around, falling, slips, trips, falls, it is all people that get injured. And I think if we live it and communicate and educate people why we're doing it, it's not to be a hassle or to be annoying. We just want to be safe, and we want everybody to come home safe. Then for local suppliers, as I said, first of all, I think it's identifying an area which is actually useful, where not too many big players are already in the market, and then the experience part comes in. So there's in my opinion, only two ways of getting into that. Either you insource resources, so you hire somebody who's experienced in that, who helps you building up, or go into a joint venture, and then also start your work scope small. You can't take over the whole maintenance of a wind farm at once, but bit by bit, and rely on the experience. And there's a lot of high-tech companies around here with good experience and innovative. And once you get the first foot into the door, I think with a small agreement and with a small part of the service, that's the way to slowly develop. And then the resources, I think, very, very crucial also for us in Pequod, because we will have quite some considerable growth in Taiwan over the next 2 or 3 years, where we're almost looking for 20 employees, and our heads are smoking. It's like, how do we do that? But it is a really good in-house localization concept that you really say, if we're hiring, you need to have a strategy how to replace the people. And it will cost in the beginning. It will be an investment, but it will be an investment in the future where we say, okay, right now for a lot of positions that we're staffing double. So we bring in an expat and an experienced guy and hire a local resource on a site and just try to educate them. On the long term, that is quite more beneficial than just keeping with expats all over the time. Language, and I know a lot of people don't hear that or don't want to hear that, but it is, our industry is international, so it will be English as the main language. Yes, on a site, on an organization, internally, you will speak Mandarin, but as soon as we have contractors in, and it's going to be English, which ties in pretty well with the concept of the government, I guess. And then experience handover, and that's what we're trying to complement a little bit with this presentation, that we say, okay, this is the way to go, and to localize. And we really believe what we wrote down there. So O&M is local service by default. And the only reason we're here is to get it started, get everybody up to speed, and then have a good start into all the wind farms, into the operational phase. I think that's it. Thank you.